Oh, you won't let me use your car? Guess I'll just have to take it then. Hey there, Mr. Redder here. And the main attraction, me. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Karen stole my car, so I called the cops on her. Last year, I moved in with my boyfriend and his dad. My boyfriend and I were in a long-distance relationship for a few years, and I moved across the country to be with him after I finished graduate school. Due to such a large distance, I opted to sell my car and buy a new one after arriving. When I did this, my boyfriend helped me out by loaning me some money to help pay the down payment, but I have since paid him back. Last week, my boyfriend's older sister, who lives in another state, came to visit and stayed at the house with us. This was my first time meeting her, and I thought she was very nice, but I didn't get to know her too well. 2 days ago, my boyfriend and I were out running errands together, and his sister called him to ask when he would be back so she could borrow his car to go hang out with her friends in a town about an hour away. He told her it would be a while, and she then asked if it was okay to borrow my car. My boyfriend asked me, and I told him I was not comfortable with that and to tell her no. My boyfriend did tell her no. I heard the entire conversation. Well, a few hours later, my boyfriend and I got home, and my car was gone. I was shocked, and my boyfriend was confused. When we went into the house, his dad informed us that he gave my boyfriend's sister the spare key to my car that was in the lockbox because she said she needed to go somewhere. My boyfriend told him that she asked to drive my car and that we had told her no, so he didn't understand why she was allowed to take it, and his dad said that since my boyfriend helped pay for the car, that it therefore was partly his, which meant his sister had the right to drive it as well. I was absolutely livid, and I couldn't believe that anyone would do something like this. My name is the only name on the title, insurance, etc., as I am the sole owner. My boyfriend told his dad to call her and tell her to bring my car back immediately, and she said that she would be home soon. After 2 hours, I called the police and reported my car stolen because I was worried that if it got damaged or something, then I would be forced to pay the repairs, even though it wasn't my fault. My boyfriend's dad and his sister were really upset about this, and they accused me of trying to get them arrested. They're now demanding that I apologize to them and tell the police it was all a misunderstanding. But I really don't want to, because I feel that they tried to take advantage of me. My boyfriend agrees with me, but even he said that he thinks calling the police to report the car as stolen may have been going too far. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. It wasn't a misunderstanding. She straight up stole your car. If she had gotten arrested, she'd have no one to blame but herself. Also, considering what a jerk your boyfriend's dad is, you should probably look into moving out as soon as you can. Not the jerk. She asked to borrow your car and you said no. She took the car despite you saying no. She stole your car. You reported her for stealing your car because, again, she did. Don't back down, or I predict this sort of thing will happen more in the future with your sister-in-law and father-in-law. You want this price? You got it. Years ago, I worked as an assistant manager for a retail store in art supplies. My store was in a very affluent area, and we got loads of bored housewives who'd drop $500 because they wanted a hobby. So one year, the company offered a one-day-only coupon for Black Friday. The store was swamped. Saturday was swamped. Sunday was swamped. I'm running a register and trying to get people through as rapidly as I can when she arrives. We'll call her Debbie. Debbie, throwing 3 bags full of merchandise on my counter. I want to return all of this stuff and rebuy it. Me. Okay, can I ask why? People sometimes did this because they had used the wrong payment method or something, but I needed to verify. Debbie. I bought all of this stuff on Friday at the store 1,500 miles away, and their tax rate is higher. So I want to return all of it and buy it here to pay lower taxes. Now hurry up. I've been driving all day, and I'm tired. This is going to be a pain on a very busy day over what comes out to be about $2.50. I confirm with the other manager who agrees this is ridiculous, but we just need to do it. So I start a return, but the totals don't match up, so I have to call and talk to the on-call support rep. He tells me I can only refund my state's tax and not the other amount. The solution is to manually adjust the prices until the tax and totals match. As I'm doing this, Debbie is complaining about how she's tired from driving. I'm taking too long. Her dog, her feet, her back, whatever. but eventually I get everything balanced and process her return. Okay, the return has been processed. It's about time. You'd be done already if you weren't so stupid. Now, I want to buy it all again. Cue Malicious Compliance Part 1. The thing about art supplies is they can be small and in multitudes, and that's what she'd purchased. Individual pencils, brushes, pastels, sheets of paper, etc. Sure thing, ma'am, but I want to be absolutely certain I ring everything up right, since I'm dumb. So, with a sweet smile, I take everything out of the bags and ring them up one by one. Of course, some stuff doesn't scan, so it has to be looked up. As I go along, she's getting more and more agitated. The insults get more and more frequent, and now everyone in the other lines are glaring at her. At last, everything is rung up and I give her the total. Part 2. Remember that coupon from the beginning of the story? The code has been pulled from the system, so her new total, with a reduced tax rate, is significantly higher than the old one. Debbie loses it and starts screeching. It's not even words at this point, just noise. Sorry, ma'am, but it looks like you used our exclusive coupon on Friday. Unfortunately, that coupon is no longer valid. Your new total will be this amount. She kept screaming, but eventually paid, snatched her items, and left. It was a good day to be retail. Am I the jerk for calling the cops on my neighbor after they took a package off my porch? I, 38 female, live alone in the house I grew up in. It was left to me by my mother after she passed away 10 years ago. About 4 years ago, a couple about my age moved in next door, and we've pretty much been at odds since day one. There have been numerous times and issues that we've disagreed on. I have 3 cats that I sometimes let out into my backyard. My neighbors have a dog that would jump the 5-foot chain link fence separating our yards to chase my cats. I told my neighbors that if I caught their dog doing it again, I would call the cops. They actually had the audacity to ask if I would be willing to split the cost of a taller privacy fence instead of, training your dog not to jump the fence. Obviously, I refused, as I wasn't the one causing the problem, and the fence is technically on their property anyway. They ended up putting in a taller fence. Then they asked me to split the cost of taking down an ash tree that was on their property. It had become infested with some sort of bugs that killed the tree, and dead limbs were falling on their driveway. They had the city come out, and the survey guy said the tree was actually about 10% on my property. I told them the tree was theirs, and if they want it down, they'll have to pay for it, because I don't have a problem with it. Needless to say, we're not friends. They've also thrown some loud, late-night parties that included bonfires and loud music that I had to call the cops for as well. I am currently out of town visiting family for a couple of weeks. I have a friend who comes over to my house every day to check on my cats and check for mail and packages. I have medication for my cats that are delivered regularly. I get a notification the other day that some packages were delivered, so I texted my friend to let them know. But before my friend could get there, I got a notification from my Ring doorbell. I pulled up the live feed and saw my neighbor on my patio. I asked him what he was doing, and he said a package of theirs got delivered to my house by mistake, so he was just grabbing it. I told him to leave and that my friend would bring over his package when she comes over. He said he's not waiting for that and tried to leave. I told him if he takes a package from my porch, I'm calling the cops. He shoved the package in front of the camera and said, "That's my name and my address. I'm taking my package." Then he walked away. So I called the police and told them that he stole a package from me and I have video proof. They said they would investigate. When my friend got there a little later, the police were talking to my neighbors. The police must have left while she was checking on my cats because when she went to leave, it was just my neighbors outside. The husband yelled at her to tell me that I'm a huge jerk and that I need to take the police off of speed dial and let them deal with more important issues instead of using them as my own personal problem-solving service. You're the jerk. I get the fence thing. You could have pitched in on the tree just to chill things out. Calling the police about the parties without talking to them about it first is a very jerk move. If it was his package and it had their name and address on it, calling the cops on them was also a jerk move. You are officially a bad neighbor now. You're the jerk. They sound like absolutely awful neighbors, and under any circumstances, I'd side with you in a second. But you called the cops and accused them of stealing their own package. They didn't steal from you. They fetched something that belonged to them off your porch. And while yes, I suppose they were trespassing, if you get medication delivered, then you know that sometimes packages can't wait, and perhaps this was a situation like that, and it doesn't sound like you cared to listen to anything they had to explain. If you want to be seen as the better person than your jerk neighbors, then you have to actually be the better person. Sign to continue lease. This starts when my now wife and I decided to move in together and rent a house. We were in our early 20s. It was our first time renting, and we had fairly low income, so our options were pretty limited. Luckily, we found a place that was in a less desirable area, but had recently had some basic renovations. We signed a lease and life went on. Our first 12 months went by with a rental inspection from the agent every 3 months or so. Never got any feedback, and being new to renting, figured everything was okay. We had a few items that needed repairing in that time, so I met the landlord and got his details for organizing repairs. He seemed like a decent bloke, probably early 40s, reasonably handy, and did some repairs himself. The first year went by, the lease came to an end, they increased the price, and we signed on for another 12 months. Then it happened. About 2 months later, the agent came to inspect along with the landlord's wife. The wife turned her nose up at absolutely everything and made a number of insulting comments about our furniture when she thought I couldn't hear. We got an inspection report after that, and it gave us a huge list of items to rectify and 2 weeks to do it, or they'd initiate proceedings to evict us. Naturally, after never hearing any feedback from any other inspections, we were shocked. The items were mostly minor nitpicks, with the worst things being to move our cats outdoors, clean the oven, and spray the weeds on the path in the backyard. We were fine copping it on the chin and doing what they asked, except for the cats. Initially, when signing the lease, it said no pets, but we requested and got acceptance for our indoor-only cats. It was noted on the lease, but not on the copy I had. I was kicking myself for not having it in writing and knew I had no chance if they wanted to push the point. So I called the landlord rather than talking through the agent. He explained that tenants in the other house they owned had been using it as a trap house, skirt, and the agents had never picked up on it. So when they found out, his wife insisted on going along to our inspection, hence why we got a bad report. I talked it out with him, and although he was very patronizing towards me, he agreed we could keep the cats inside as long as we kept everything clean and the next reports went fine. So we did as they asked, and they increased the inspections from once every 3 months to once a month, which is the minimum period they're allowed. We had a list of things to fix after every inspection. It made our lives horrible. We felt like intruders in our own home. We grew to hate living there, and it put a strain on our relationship. Luckily, or unlucky, depending on how you look at it, my father passed around this time, so I ended up with inheritance money from his super fund and the sale of his house. My wife and I used the inheritance as a deposit to buy a house of our own, sorted out a loan agreement, and found a place that we liked. Now this is where I finally got my chance to repay them for making us feel like indentured servants that only existed to vacuum carpets and scrub walls in our home. By some miracle of luck, I negotiated the settlement date for our new house to be 1 week before our lease was due to end. This meant that we wouldn't have to break contract and be stuck footing the bill while they found new tenants. Better yet, they sent me a letter saying our lease was due to end and included a new lease agreement with a large jump in rent. The letter said we had to either sign the new lease and send it back to them by a date that was 2 weeks before end of lease, or consider the contract ended, move out by the end of the lease term, and hand over the keys. It said nothing about telling them we didn't want to renew the lease, so I didn't. I didn't want them booking open inspections and intrude further on our lives to show the place to new tenants, and decided they didn't deserve extra notice. The days ticked by, a couple weeks went past, and my wife and I were busy getting ready to move. I didn't get contacted by the agent again until my phone rang 1 week after the new paperwork was due, literally the day before we were moving out. It was the agent, of course. They greeted me nicely and said it was just a reminder that we needed to sign the new lease and get it back to them. I told them, "Oh, we aren't signing it. We bought a house and we're moving out tomorrow." The other end of the line went dead silent for a good few seconds while my face got stuck in a grin. The agent quietly asked why we hadn't told them, and I said the paperwork only said to let them know if we were extending the lease, nothing about moving out, so I assumed they knew. She said goodbye pretty quickly, and the panic in her voice was glorious. She was done for, and she knew it. I wish I got to hear more of the fallout, but my wife and I moved out, cleaned the house over the remaining week, and I handed the keys over. They never booked any open inspections in that final week, so the house sat empty for a while, waiting for new tenants, and the landlords missed out on some rent payments. We also checked the listings and saw they advertised it at a lower price than what they were going to gouge us for. As a bonus, a couple days after the lease ended, the agent called me and said our contract stated that we had to have the carpet steam cleaned and they were going to take the cost from our bond. I told her we had had them steam cleaned and she said we didn't. The carpet smelled like garbage. After me telling her again that we had, she demanded a copy of the receipt. I emailed it through and never heard from them again. I didn't mention that there was a cavity under the house and the couple bags of rubbish I chucked under there as we were moving out because the bins were full. I guess the floor wasn't airtight. Am I the jerk for not wanting to share a room with my little brother? When I, 19 female, left for college last year, my parents gave my room to my little brothers, who are 6 and 3. My sister, who's 14, has her own room. I came back from college for the summer, and I'm probably going to be taking a gap year as well. I was put back in my old room, and I'm sharing it with my 6-year-old brother. My 3-year-old brother is sharing with my sister. It's been horrible. I have no privacy at all. My brothers get up at 7 a.m., come into our room, flip the light on, and start playing and fighting at full volume. I can't tell them to leave because it's their room. My mom and sister also come in at all hours of the day without knocking to put laundry or toys away and leave the door wide open. I don't have a car, and my parents only have one right now, so I haven't gotten a summer job yet. I have nowhere else to go all day, so I have my AirPods in most of the day to spare my sanity and drown out the constant fighting and noise, which also upsets my mother. The 6-year-old is out of control as well. He bullies everyone and gets away with little to no consequences. I tell him to get out of my stuff, and he bops me and runs away. He picks the bathroom lock and bursts in laughing. A 6-year-old already knows how to pick the lock? It's going to be a really good criminal one day. Whenever I speak up about these things, I get told that I'm insulting my mom's parenting, that I'm ungrateful for having a place to stay, and that I can't make any demands because I don't pay rent. I've been kicked out for a night before. My mother insists that I must hate my brother and reads into almost everything I do or say as a direct attack against him. She says that I want to paint him as a little villain and myself as a victim. So, am I the jerk for not wanting to share a room with him? Edit. I'm taking a gap year because I was paying for college by myself and can't afford it anymore. College is not just a free escape from my situation, and I'm not acting rich or spoiled by taking a gap year. I literally cannot afford it. Edit 2. I'm not asking them to rearrange the rooms or force all 3 siblings in one room. I'm not sure where in my post people are reading that. I'm being told that I'm ungrateful for not being happy being woken up by screams at 7 a.m., having the bathroom lock picked, and getting bopped by the 6-year-old. That is what I have a problem with. The people calling you the jerk are wild, not the jerk. Why aren't the 2 boys sharing a room? It would probably be much better if you were sharing a room with your sister. Also, your brother picks the lock? That's unacceptable in my opinion. Maybe you could team up with your sister and demand to share with her if she's unhappy too. There's not really a lot you can do with unreasonable parents. If they were really supportive, they would be driving you to a job or helping you get a ride. I'm guessing you live in a place with no public transport. Is there anyone you can ask to give you rides? I'm rooting for you, girl. You did nothing wrong. Am I the jerk for asking my boyfriend why he continues to pay for a child that isn't his, causing him to stop? We've got me, female 28. We've got my boyfriend, male 24. We've got Marco, boyfriend's biological son who's 2 years old. Polo, boyfriend's ex's child, no relation to boyfriend. And baby mama, my boyfriend's ex, the mother of Marco and Polo. I, OP, and my boyfriend have been seeing each other for only about 3 weeks, an admittedly short amount of time. The issue arises, however, with Polo, or the mother's expectations involving this kid. Polo is baby mama's first son and belongs to a deadbeat who lives out of town and has never been in Polo's life. Boyfriend spent about 3 years in Polo's life as a male adult figure while in a relationship with baby mama. Since they've split, he only sees Polo if he happens to be with Marco. Last night, baby mama contacted boyfriend and just told him, "You're taking the boys tonight," and this upset him. He said he struggles to care for 2 kids on his own and can't afford it. Confused, I asked, "I thought only Marco was yours." He confirmed only Marco was his, but he feels responsible for Polo as he was involved in his life from a young age. We discussed Polo's father, and I expressed my distaste for fathers who don't step up for their own kids, saying something along the lines of, "Why does his dad get no responsibility? He should be feeling this obligation, not you." Boyfriend then told baby mama that he will take Marco absolutely no issue. but said he's no longer going to be held responsible for Polo. Baby mama then basically said, "Cool, you're never seeing your son again," then made threats to call local organizations and has been blasting him on Facebook, calling him a deadbeat dad. I'm a childless woman. I won't even begin to pretend that I understand how complicated her situation must be. However, I am childless because I choose to be, meaning I've never just been like, "Oops, I guess I'm pregnant," and have always found it fairly easy to just not get knocked up. So I have little sympathy for this next detail. She's currently pregnant with a third kid from a third baby daddy and has no idea who it is, and fully expects boyfriend to take care of the third kid too. One conceived after they broke up by another man. It's clear to me that this woman will expect boyfriend to pay for and care for any kid she has now or in the future because he's a good man. To her, it has nothing to do with who was there for Polo or Marco. It's who will pay the child support. I feel like my comment was the final straw. I'm worried I should have kept my mouth shut, but I was genuinely just making light conversation. I never said, "You should do XYZ." I also really don't like that because he wouldn't take both of the kids, he wasn't permitted to see his son. Am I the jerk? Does everyone suck here? Should I have kept my comment to myself? Not the jerk. Are you prepared for this drama long term? If not, run. Now. It won't stop. Not the jerk. Your boyfriend could emotionally provide for Polo since he's been in his life, but financial obligation is to Marco. I would advise your boyfriend to get a custody agreement in place. Everyone sucks here. As a girlfriend of 3 weeks, it really wasn't your place to question how he chooses to structure his family. He'd been a father figure to that boy for 3 years. Withdrawing financial support and no longer seeing the boy who looked up to him as a dad so abruptly was a jerk move on your boyfriend's part. If he wanted to step back, there were ways to do that more gradually or less confusing to the poor kid. Obviously, the mom is the worst. 3 kids by 3 baby daddies and expects one to support them all is crazy. She doesn't seem like a responsible woman. Am I the jerk for having a party at my apartment while a neighbor was studying? 2 weeks ago, a college student that lives in the apartment next door went door to door to every single apartment on our floor and the floors below us and above us to warn everyone that she has her college exams coming up and she's studying, so we better not have any parties until the end of May. She was somewhat kind, and having been through the stress of exams, I was compassionate and agreed that I won't have any loud parties, but I told her that my birthday is on May 5th, and on Friday night I'd probably have a couple of friends over and have some low music. She got annoyed when I told her that and told me that I better be quiet then. I didn't like her attitude, considering the fact that I was trying to be empathetic, and also told her I'd not do anything crazy for a party besides low music and some friends over. On Thursday evening, after I came back from work, I saw 2 notes. One on the building entrance and one on the elevator which said, "I'm the college student from floor 7. Please refrain from any kind of social gatherings that might disturb my studying during this stressful time." I didn't give much thought to it. I wasn't planning on a party, as I said. On Friday night, I had my 3 closest friends come over. We didn't party, we just chilled at my apartment and had some low music, which barely could be heard in my own bedroom, let alone next door apartments. On Saturday morning, there was a note on the elevator once again, straight up naming me and saying, "OP from the 7th floor broke the agreement and had a social gathering on Friday night, completely disrespecting the stressful time I'm going through. She said she'd be discreet, but this is not enough. I could still hear some laughs and discussions because I had my windows and my balcony door open and disrupted my peace and focus. Let this be a lesson. The next time someone decides to disrespect stressful times like this, you will be called out." Certain neighbors defended me and said that the college girl was being unreasonable with her demands, but other neighbors believe I was a jerk and that I should go to a restaurant or a bar instead of having a gathering at my house. Not the jerk. It's completely unreasonable for her to ban other people from having pretty quiet social gatherings for 6 weeks. She wasn't even prepared to close her windows. She sounds unhinged, to be honest. Parents decided to cancel my 14th birthday party to accommodate my spoiled younger brother. I'm 20, male, and this happened when I was 14. I have a brother that's about 6 years younger than me, and he was extra coddled by my parents for having been diagnosed with high-functioning autism when he was 4. But other than that, he seems very normal, just unbelievably spoiled, and he used that to get his way a lot. And by a lot, I mean nearly all the time. Anything I had, he also had to have. So that meant we had doubles of almost everything that weren't shared items. And anything he had that I didn't, he'd rub in my face any way he could. When I was 11, I begged my parents for a 3DS for my 12th birthday. I got one, but then was told to lend it to my brother whenever he wanted it, or else I'd have it taken away, which was a lot. When my aunt found out after seeing my parents forcibly take my 3DS out of my hands to give to my brother on one of her visits, she let loose on them for such blatant favoritism. They returned my 3DS immediately, then blamed me for the situation after my aunt left. But they didn't make me give it to my brother again. Instead, my parents went out a few days later and bought another 3DS as a surprise gift for my brother. On several of mine and other people's birthdays, my brother made a huge fuss because the party wasn't all about him, even going so far as to outright state that he was upset because he wasn't getting any gifts or getting to blow out the candles on the cake. My parents learned the hard way that they couldn't enable my brother the way they'd have liked at those parties, and were actually kicked out of a few for trying. And because of that, other kids at his school stopped inviting him to birthday parties altogether. For me, my birthdays were some of the only days I had that I got to have about me, because otherwise my parents forced my life to revolve around my little brother. And the year prior to when this story took place, my parents ended up paying more attention to him the entire time of my 13th birthday, and even asked me if I'd let my brother blow out my candles for me because he was upset and pouting. I refused that because I wanted to blow out my own candles. They called me a spoiled brat at first, till my aunt intervened and chastised them on their favoritism yet again, and stated how much she had noticed how my brother gets nearly everything between the two of us. My parents got no support from anyone else there other than my brother, who was still crying because he wasn't getting to blow out the candles. And because he didn't get his way, he tried to outright spit on my cake out of spite. But my awesome aunt thankfully blocked him before he got the chance, then scolded him till he ran to my mom in tears. My parents took a lot of heat from the other adults there, and then promised to never ask me to let my brother blow out my candles again. But they pretty much just went through the motions for the rest of the party. My aunt pretty much took over coordinating everything from that point. The following year, a couple of weeks before my birthday, my parents sat me down and told me they were still going to get me some gifts and a small cake, but my birthday party was effectively canceled to avoid my brother having another meltdown. I told them I couldn't believe they were doing this to me, and then they just seemed to shrug it off without a care. So at school over the next week, I told my friends, my teachers, and even my school counselor. All of them were appalled by my parents' lack of consideration or empathy. The vice principal even found out and consoled me. And all of this got back to my parents through social media. My parents ended up grounding and gaslighting me for telling so many people. But that didn't stop me from still telling everyone at school that I was grounded for just being upset my birthday was canceled for no good reason. I guess that made it a lot worse, because several of my parents' own friends, along with parents to other kids in my school, called them up or sent them Facebook messages, basically saying, "What's wrong with you?" And suddenly, I was ungrounded. I didn't get an apology either. My dad just walked into my room with his arms crossed, told me my grounding was over early, and then walked out. That was it. I thought my party was still canceled because nobody said anything about it, and my brother thought it was hilarious and rubbed it in my face that I wasn't going to get to celebrate. But by the end of the 2 weeks, my parents held a surprise party for me at my favorite restaurant, and then started claiming that was their intent all along. I knew it wasn't. From what I'd seen, everyone was incredibly unhappy with them for what they did, and it showed with any interactions family members had with my parents. So they ended up doing the surprise party to try and save what little of their reputations they had left. But I'm pretty sure they had to pay through the nose that day just to accommodate me. I got dinner with all my friends at my favorite restaurant that had a small arcade, and even got the PS4 game I'd been wanting at the time. I could tell it was all pretty much planned and bought last minute because my dad had a look about him that my aunt comically described as looking like a moth had flown out of his wallet. My brother, of course, made a huge fuss that I got that surprise party. But with so many of my friends and their parents there, my mom and dad finally put their feet down on my brother to stop his tantrum when he wanted to push my cake off the table. My brother ended up getting a timeout for the first time since he was a toddler, and my mom had to stay with him to make sure he didn't do anything crazy. And he did try several times to run to the cake or stack of presents. Who knows what he could have done were it not for the fact at least one adult was always on guard. Even my dad stood guard to keep him away. My mom ended up having to remove my brother and herself from the party entirely and took my little brother to a McDonald's nearby so he could have fun in their play area. And I heard later she spent at least an hour trying to get him to come out of the play place tube structure. And he only did so because he had to use the bathroom, then tried to run back in again. My parents never tried to cancel my birthday again while I still lived with them, though they never again tried as hard or spent as much. For the remaining 4 years I was under their roof, my birthday parties consisted of a local pizza parlor, a cake without even my name written on it, and never again anything as expensive as a new gaming system. I didn't mean to sound spoiled, but I was a bit disappointed I never got a cake with my name on it again. My aunt called my parents out on that each year, and each year they claimed they forgot to get the cake decorated. I'm pretty sure that the reason my name was never written on another cake was because my brother always refused to eat pieces of cake that had writing of someone else's name on it at any party. And they couldn't put his name on any of my cakes, or it would have looked very bad for them. But the fact that I still got a day that was just about me at all and not my brother was still fantastic in my book, especially because just about everything else revolved around him. During each of my remaining birthday parties while still living at home, my brother made a fuss, and my mom took him somewhere else to calm him down. I was still required to share my PS4 with my brother, but it was still mine, and I took it with me when I moved out at 18. Little bro did not like that and had a huge fit until my parents went out and bought another PS4 for him. When I moved out, they finally had to deal with how they had raised my brother so spoiled because I wasn't there to help them with him anymore. On his recent 14th birthday, he went mental on our parents for not getting him a PS5. He's now currently grounded for I don't know how long after causing hundreds, or maybe even thousands, in collateral damage during his rampage. He picked up a chair and just started destroying anything that was in front of him with it. And my parents just looked mentally checked out when I saw them last. My aunt has also told me that they confided in her that they wish they could send my brother to military or boarding school in the future because they can't handle the monster they created anymore. But there's no way they can afford that. I'd be lying if I said I didn't find it ironically funny. It took that many people calling them out before they did something? The relatives chastising them wasn't enough? It had to take a whole school and a small community? Dang. I fear the one day that your brother will be in jail.
Maybe our audience can help us by making sure they're subscribed and tick the bell for all notifications.
A thumbs up would help too. Come watch this video next, the one that just popped up. We'll see you when you get there.